Hello everyone, today I want to discuss why it's crucial to defend who we are. Why? Because in our time we are threatened by nihilists who seek to erase all distinctions and promote consumerist conformity. Imagine a cocktail bartender trying to blend a variety of unique alcohol ingredients into one big tasteless cocktail. This is what is happening. Why am I telling you this? Here's the story. IGN released an article 6 months ago accusing Game Science, the Chinese developer of Black Myth Wukong, of being sexist, with evidence that did not match the seriousness of the allegations. Recently, the story blew up when a blogger in China accused the article's writer of collaborating with a diversity consulting firm to create hit pieces. The alleged goal was to threaten gaming companies into working with this firm for large sums of money, or else their reputation will continue to be attacked. Finally, IGN commented on the game's demo, complaining that they did not see any women or femme-coded characters, whatever that means. Because of course, that's the only thing that really matters. After seeing the Greek gods turned into the gods of diversity in Hades 2, it must be surprising for the journalistic clergy to see a non-Western mythology resisting the nothingness of modern political correctness. In short, there are a series of articles and accusations by IGN damaging the reputation of Game Science without substantial evidence or fair interpretation. A bit unfair, right? Did the gaming community react with resilience? No. As we have seen with Helldivers 2, gamers proved to be a non-resilient community, but a resisting one that fights back without absorbing the hit. The backlash against IGN's reporting led to increased support for Game Science, with some fans deciding to buy multiple copies of the game as a show of solidarity. This situation is similar to what happened with Stellar Blade's demo, where the backlash was so huge that it inevitably caused a lot of advertisement and success in sales. Now, we basically have two sides fighting here: the Chinese developer and the Western journalistic clergy. In between are the gamers, who just want to enjoy a good game. Will this clash end anytime soon? I think this has happened before and will, unfortunately, happen again. It's a classic case of what Samuel Huntington calls the clash of civilizations. So why do IGN journalists behave this way? There are clearly foreign cultural elements that Western gaming journalists do not even try to understand or accept. As I explained in my character analysis of Stellar Blade, we had a company representing the Korean idea of beauty. This time, with Black Myth Wukong, we have a game that is a love letter to one of the most important books in Chinese literature, the 16th century novel Journey to the West. It's a strong statement of Chinese identity that does not need to be modernized in the Western sense of the word. Strong identities are perceived as dangerous in our age by the media, as something to be feared, criticized, and modernized. Does the game respect Chinese identity? Well, sort of. The source work is vast and difficult to transform into a game, since it covers 100 chapters and over 1,500 pages, depending on the edition that you pick up. The name of the protagonist of the game is taken from one of the characters who has become one of the most famous in Chinese literature and beyond, Sun Wukong. Besides the name, from what I've seen, I believe the game seems to be building on the legacy of the myth, rather than retelling the myth itself. From what the demo showed, it appears to be a postscript or sequel to Journey to the West. The protagonist does not seem to be Sun Wukong, but rather someone similar to him. For instance, the staff he wields is not black and decorated with gold like the one that the Dragon King of the Eastern Sea gave to the Monkey King, nor are the clothes as sparkling as those gifted by the legendary Serpent Brothers in the book. The monkey that appears towards the end of the demo aligns much more closely with the description of Wukong, so the identity of the protagonist is unclear, but there are numerous references to the book and characters build upon elements of the myth. This approach is really a good idea, because it frees the creativity of the writers while strengthening the myth of the source material, anchoring it even deeper into the well of stories that define Chinese culture. So again, it is not a retelling of the book itself. It does not show an antiquarian relationship with history, which transforms the past into a marble statue that must be worshipped. Instead, it expands the story, bringing new life into it. On the other side, we see Western video game journalists attacking the Chinese developer without evidence to support the seriousness of their allegations. and giving lessons on how to properly modernize a story. This seems driven by an agenda to align with the golden standard of Western modernization: homogenization, indistinction, and the total neglect of identity. This comes from the same media that criticized the Resident Evil 5 remake as racist for depicting white characters fighting black zombies, yet praised Assassin's Creed Shadows for its modernity, despite it featuring a black samurai killing Asian men. Now, let me be clear. To call for representation and diversity in all fields of life is important and just, but these journalists do not care about this at all. Complaining about the absence of female characters, in this case, is a purely consumeristic caprice. In reality, they do not conceive any kind of alternative modernization to cultural homogenization, the ontic figure of pantoclastic technocapitalism, which causes all beings to fall onto a surface that, like a blind mirror, proves incapable of reflecting any image. In the scenario of Western modernity, there is no place for being, no man, no object. There are only consumer goods, responding to the market trends of the time. And in our time, the trend to be venerated like a monolith is called woke capitalism. The situation with IGN reminds me of an episode involving the philosopher Leibniz. In Hanover Park, local ladies were searching for two maple leaves that were perfectly identical. One day, a lady thought she had found two identical leaves, but upon closer inspection, she had to admit that although they were very similar, they were not exactly the same. Leibniz used this episode to theorize his principle of the identity of the indiscernibles. The principle states that if there is no difference and no way to distinguish between two entities, then the two entities are, in truth, one and the same. This means that exactly identical things do not exist, even when we think that we have found them. Therefore, the world exists as a relationship of identity and difference. This helps us to understand the current drive in the dominant discourse, including gaming journalism, to advocate sameness everywhere, which in reality leads to the neutralization of identities and differences. It promotes a single, genderless, borderless model suitable for everything, which must be universally applied on a cosmopolitical scale. This is why I believe it is crucial to defend who we are, our own identities, and by extension, those of others. We should draw inspiration and enrichment from diverse ancient cultures, such as the millenarian history of China in this case. We can think of identity as a form of cultural and spiritual sovereignty that allows us to resist the processes of planetary homogenization. Western globalized media is often adverse to identities in all their spheres because it aims to produce a post-identity individual, a person who lacks a fixed identity and can therefore be filled with temporary identities imposed by the civilization of consumption and technology. These identities can be constantly remodeled and changed depending on the context. This is why having an identity today and defending it is a revolutionary act, keeping us at safe distance from the fundamental nihilistic, homogenizing, and misidentitarian trends of woke capitalism. It's a basic, timeless concept, but one that we should never forget. Well done, Monkey King.